Excellent. Do we have video on? or, is or is this unplugged again? Okay. Let's see what happens. Now, this morning, I talked about many things, many stories. But on the questions last night, I said, can't we have some deep talks? Do you want a deep Dhamma talk this morning?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have to also teach you that whatever you want, it never comes true. I've been teaching you that all week, and you've forgotten? Okay, but anyway, I thought, why not? So, on that one occasion when people asked in Singapore, asked me so many years ago, is anyone from Singapore here? Don't admit it. Promise to keep quiet about this. I'll give a deep talk, but you can't tell them I gave a deep talk. Otherwise, when I go back there again, they'll expect the same. So anyway, what is a deep talk? The deep talk is like putting the causes and conditions clearly in front of you about why things like anatta, dukkha, anicca are real. They're not just theories. They're not just things we worship, but things which are true. And just to give a little background behind that, or support for that, just as I was coming in here to this talk, Venerable Siddhi Bhutto remarked there was one of the magpies was sitting on top of one of the stupas, and they would always poo on it. Is that sacrilegious? Is that wrong? Of course not. That's what magpies do. And I remember this is the Thai forest tradition, in those early years, that when we built our main hall at Bodhinyana, we put that Buddha statue just facing in the direction it's facing now. It was the obvious place to put it. And then some of our Thai disciples, who were highly educated, when we had a visiting Thai monk came, his name was Ajahn Brahm, one of Ajahn Chah's senior monks, they complained to him, these Western monks, they really don't know what they're doing. Everybody knows a Buddha statue is supposed to face east. I did mention that story to you of a king Ajatasattu visiting the Buddha for the first time in the bamboo grove, Welawana monastery. And he had to go in a chariot as far as he could go, and get off the chariot, walk in his sandals as far as he could go. When he came to the hall, had to take his sandals off. That was one of the stories from that. It's a beautiful little simile of, whenever you are practicing, you can actually just, you can take your knowledge as far as you can go, then you've got to put it down in order to get some peacefulness in meditation. You do the breath meditation as far as breath can take you, and then you've got to let it go. Go to nimittas. And then, do you stay with nimittas when you get into the jhanas? No way. You have to let the lights vanish to get into the bliss. And one of the lovely similes for that was the Alice in Wonderland simile. I still get it confused, Alice in Wonderland or Alice through the looking glass. When Alice would see the head of this Cheshire cat on a tree, smiling at her. They called it a Cheshire cat because it's always smiling. And then the Cheshire cat would suddenly appear and then disappear totally. And then suddenly disappear again. And then Alice says, very peculiar and very confusing, why you keep on coming and going so quickly. So out of compassion, the Cheshire cat said, okay, I will fade away slowly. And so the Cheshire Cat was on the tree smiling at Alice, and then started to vanish slowly. First its ears disappeared, then its whiskers disappeared, then its cheeks disappeared, and its eyes disappeared, until all that was remaining was the Cheshire Cat's lips, the mouth, and the smile. Then finally, the Cheshire Cat's lips disappeared, leaving only the smile. And Alice replied, "Wow, I've often seen a cat without a smile. This is the first time I've seen a smile without a cat." And that was how, what was it? The author of Alice in Wonderland. Thank you. He was a mathematician, a professor of maths at Oxford. If it was at Cambridge, he'd make more sense. Have you ever noticed the difference between Oxford University and Cambridge University? Oxford University, their colour is a light blue. Cambridge is a dark blue. So I often said that in Cambridge we went over to the dark side. Okay, I'm just messing around. But anyway, the idea of things vanishing and disappearing is curious when you can have a smile without lips. But that's very much what the jhanas are like. They're happiness with nothing to be happy. This is giving you information, data, which you thought was impossible. But you experience it and it's real. And as I've also said, that one of the things which happens in those deep meditations, or even just before, all those 5 hindrances, they're just not there. You don't want anything. Desire, not just craving. Craving is way too intense. Any desire for even small things, it just disappeared, vanished. And the ill will, not being happy with things, has also disappeared. And there's no sloth and torpor at all. You're energized, you're right there, empowered, energized. And of course, it's strange to have so much energy without restlessness. You'd think it had so much energy, you can't stop moving. It's focused, energized on this whatever thing you're looking at. That is why sometimes people feel that meditation is concentration. It's not made through concentration, but it appears similar. They have a word in Pali to describe this called ekaggata. Of course, when you have never learned Pali, you think, oh, ekaggata, one-pointedness of mind. It does not mean that. It's made more powerful. It's ekaggata. A-double-G-A. And that means something different than ekaggata. It's a simple sort of mistake which people can make. And I'm not being pedantic. There's a purpose for explaining it this way. Agga, you all know the meaning of that word. When I start to say its Sanskrit equivalent, agra. How many of you have been to see the Buddhist holy sites of India? And on your way, you've probably gone to see the Taj Mahal in the city of Agra. The reason the Taj Mahal was there, and the Red Fort as well, because Agra was the Mughal capital of India many years ago. And because of that, the Agra is like the capital, the peak, the summit. So ekaggata means just a one summitness. It's not just one-pointedness, not a point. It's this huge peak of the mind, single, not moving. And that describes the experiences of a jhana much more accurately than just one pointiness of mind, one summit of mind, one peak, one huge, lofty peak of mind. And you know that story I've told you about the pyramids over in Guatemala? And when you're those, that's what they remind you of. A big peak, summit of construction. When you go to the top of it and you're above the tree line, you can see forever. I did once go to Egypt and see the pyramids there. But number one, there was too many people watching you. And number two, they were huge. Even though I was fit and healthy, no way am I going to climb those. So, but the ones over in Guatemala were a little bit smaller, more climbable, and no one was there. Why do they have pyramids? In Central America and also in Egypt. What's their connection? Any idea? Those things occur in several places simply because it's a very suitable way to get above the tree lines, to get above the sand dunes, and actually to see distances. That's why there's something holy about them. That's some of the reasons why people have mountains. And on the top of mountains, that's where holy people live. We did have a mountain in this part of Western Australia, but we did have hills. And that's why we're on top of one. And there's something beautiful about that. I remember being in those kutis over in Bodhinyana Monastery and just making sure, because I built these kutis, to have a window which faces west. So you can see the sunset, but not just the sun go down. It's just vast distances. And in those vast distances, you can see all the only one way to call it, stupidity of human nature. On the weekend, on Friday afternoon and evening, I'd look through the window and see all the line of traffic going south. Hardly any cars were going north. And on Sunday evening, I saw all the same cars going north, and nothing was going south. They go that way and that way. And I was just sitting there going nowhere. Much more fun. So these give huge perspective. So you can understand, the world in which you live, where you come from, where you're going. And after a while, that gives you some insight. Why do people go south? Why do people go north? What are you going there for? That restlessness thinks that when you get there, then you'll be happy. Then you go the other distant way. When I get back home, then I'll be happy. Or sometimes, this is one of the things I thought about life. When I was at school, as a schoolboy, you always thought, once you pass your exams, once you're successful, then you'll be happy. So, I had to work really hard in that time for my O-levels. And that's his UK system. But also at that time, I loved playing soccer. I would play soccer all day, and they had to drag me from the... I remember even that just once, when I was just playing in the park opposite where I lived, and my mother came out and took one look at me and said, "You better get back inside. You've got pimples all over you. You've got, I don't know what disease it was, measles or German measles or something, or mumps or..." And I said, "Okay, Mummy, I'll be back in half an hour. We haven't finished the game yet." I was way more interested in playing soccer than about health. I think you can understand that for a kid. And I didn't mind. I still felt healthy enough. was just I was coming down with some disease. So, and the same when I was even at school. They said, look, stop playing soccer so much. Stop running after a ball. Stay at home and do your homework. Because if you get good results at O-levels, you'll be happy, you'll be set for life. It's a good foundation. So I worked really hard, I stopped playing soccer, and I did homework. The problem was, I did really well. Because I did really well, I wasn't happy afterwards. I had more exams to do, the A-levels. But this time, parents, teachers said, if you really work hard at the A-levels and do really well there, then you'll be able to get good jobs, you make a lot of money, and you'll be happy. I believed them. So I worked really hard and got straight A's at A-levels, which was kind of ridiculous. And I was only 16 at the time. 16 or 14? Yeah, 16, yeah. Oh, 15. You're supposed to wait till you're 18 before you do A-levels. So I was doing really well. But then they said, well, then you can go to university. When you go to university, that's really important. If you get a good degree from a good university, then you have nothing to worry about for the rest of your life. That's what I was told. Was that true? Do you tell your kids to work really hard and go to university and get a good degree? Are they happy? No. I wasn't. And I started to, for that time of my life, I started to question and be dubious. Because I've seen many people who got good degrees and they weren't at all happy. So then I started to look and question, investigate. And I found what was in front of me after getting a good degree, that was the bachelor's, the first degree. What are you supposed to do next? Can you relax and retire? No. Then you've got to do a master's. If you do well at a master's, you've got to do a PhD. And at that time, I wasn't so interested in certificates. I certainly wasn't chasing a football anymore. To be honest, I was chasing girls. Getting a nice girlfriend. Because I thought, once you find the love of your life, get married, you'll be happy ever after. People told you that? Those of you who have got a partner, are you happy ever after? Be honest. It's no one's fault, that's just what happens, when two different people try and live together and find happiness together. So I thought, what happens anyway if you do find a nice girlfriend and you commit and want to get married? Then you've got to get some money to get a house or an apartment or something. And that's really hard. And then you have to work really hard. And I saw many of my older friends working really hard. They weren't happy yet. And then I saw them, once they have enough money, they got married, they got a nice partner, what happens then? They get children. Then you're really in trouble. They're really expensive. You think having a girlfriend is expensive, or having kids. And a lot of responsibility, some joy as well. But I notice many people who have children, then they can't wait. They work really hard. They say, okay, when my kids leave home, now they've got a good degree and they've got a nice partner themselves, then I'll be free. Mum and Dad can just enjoy themselves and they don't need to worry anymore. But by that time, what happens next is your daughter gets married and has a child, and then you're stuck again. That's what Mummy thinks. My daughter has other ideas. And so what happens? Then that's why I often wondered why it was. Somebody mentioned this. Why is it that most people who go to the temples are women? I look at it in a different way. Most people who go to churches, mosques, go to Buddhist temples, like here, most of them are old. You know why? Because by this time of your life you really start to think, my goodness, I haven't found any happiness yet, but once I get jhana, then I'll be happy. The happiness is always off in the future sometimes. That's why we get a lot of old people coming to monasteries and temples. Even what's the average age of the monks over in Bodhinyana? Somebody worked it out the other day. It's over 50. It is a group of old people of Bodhinyana monastery. What about Dhammasara? About the same. Michael said, okay, we make some merit now, and then we can be happy afterwards. There's something terribly wrong with that. And of course you can see through it. The happiness is a promise for the future. Just like Prince Charming and Cinderella running off into the sunset and happy ever after. Is that true? That's why we call it a fairy tale. So a lot of times we're searching for happiness all the time, just like the donkey running after the apple. And you can see it, smell it, it's so close to you, and you think, just a little bit more effort, then you can catch it. There's something very wrong with that. It's untrue. So what does the Buddha do? He said, if I can't taste that happiness now, does it really exist? So many times I ask you, are you happy? Never ask you, will you be happy? Are you happy right now? What is that happiness? What does it taste like? Sometimes it's not getting what you want. It's learning how to be content and easily satisfied when you don't want very much. And when you give up this wanting business, no matter what that wanting is, you're going to find you can be so peaceful, so happy. What do you need in life, honestly? I didn't say what you want, I said what do you need? Very little. Over in Buddhism, we are taught from the time we ordain, the only things you need are the 4 basic requisites. Those requisites are robes for your body. You don't need much robes, honestly, even in a cool country like Australia during the winter time. Australia is cool in the winter time. And right now, many of you complain it's not winter time anymore. It's like October. It's the equivalent to what you might call, springtime. Springtime should be very comfortable, but still it's cold for you. So all you need is like robes to keep you warm enough. You don't need that much. But the problem is people want fashionable clothes. The nice thing by being a monastic, the fashion hasn't changed for 2,500 years. Which is a wonderful example. Basically you can wear anything. It's got holes in it, it's got patches in it, and we're encouraged to put those patches in for the sake of simplicity, which means that a robe lasts many, many, many years. And once you have a couple of robes to wear, the other thing you need, next thing, is like a hut to live in. There's many allowable types of huts. You're going to see one this afternoon, those of you going over to Bodhinyana Monastery. You'll see my cave. And my cave is where I meditate and sleep. You'll find that I have the most touristy bedroom in the whole world. So many people have visited my bedroom. I'm kind of embarrassed about that. What do you want to see a bedroom for? It's not just bedroom. It's also where you meditate as well, and that's why people like to go and see in there. How big is it? I know because I live in it. Sometimes, when I can, when people aren't visiting. It's like, imagine like a hemisphere with 2.5 meters diameter and about 2 meters high. That's where I live. It's very small. How can you be content in there? So easy, because it's small. When you go there this afternoon, Prem's going to take you there. Prem, please let them know how you get the air supply coming in. Because many times people wonder that without air, you would just die of suffocation inside a cave. But the people who designed it had a little duct, like pipes. They use sewer pipes. They're plastic and they're fine. That brings air in, and around the back there's 2 pipes going upwards, and when the wind blows, they have what's called like Bernoulli effect, and it sucks the air and draws the air out of the cave. And that's where you get your air supply from. I know when I first went in there, I was a scientist, so I wanted to make sure that it was going to be healthy in there. And I just had a little candle, which I lit, and I put it right in front of the intake pipe, and it flickered. It taught me there was an air supply coming through, but very, very light, exactly what you wanted. Not too much air, not too little air, but enough to keep you oxygenated. And also, I was only using that cave for either sleeping or meditating. It didn't need much oxygen. And that's why it worked brilliantly. There was, when you go in there this afternoon, we've also got a dehumidifier. Because when that cave was first built, people thought it was leaking because there was water droplets on the roof. Not the roof, I mean on the rocks inside. Those water droplets were nothing to do with water leaking. It was just any humid air coming in, hitting the cold rocks, and that would leave drips of water on there. That's all it was. And there's hardly anything else in there. Please, when you go in there, have a look under the mattress. Make sure there's no contraband underneath. You just want to say just what the pleasure is for a monk. It's one of the allowable dwellings. And it's also a metaphor of the Buddha, who said that the word for a cave, one of the words for a cave is called guha. And he said there's also this ahadayan guha, the cave of the heart. The cave of the heart is when you get into a deep meditation. It's like being in a cave. It's a dark, soundproof, and you really feel that you're apart from the world. In the cave of the heart, that's a meditation cave of the heart. This is a physical cave of the heart. Simple to build, simple to maintain. Actually, it doesn't take me any hours of maintenance at all. You know why? You know why, Venerable? Because good monks like you like to go in there and clean it up for me. It's really awful being a monk. I don't have any chance to do anything. Even just washing my robes, somebody volunteers to do it. Washing my dishes or whatever. Who does that? But anyway, looking at a cave, that's all you need. Sometimes, Ajahn Brahm, look, you have enough disciples. Why don't you get a mansion? How many rooms? Well, I need obviously a couple of rooms for myself, 1 room, 2 rooms for my attendants. You can't overwork your attendants. That's why there was this. I haven't brought it here today, but I have all these articles which always make me laugh. Once upon a time, the government discovered they had some old machinery. It wasn't really useful, but worthwhile keeping. So they put an enclosed fence. They enclosed it in a fence. But then they thought that's not enough. We have to get like a caretaker to look after it. So they advertised and employed a caretaker. And then once they employed a caretaker, someone said, well, we should actually make sure we get an accountant to make sure they're paid appropriately, because whenever you pay someone, there's always these regulations and how much you pay them and how much holiday they're allowed and how much sick leave they can have, and over holiday periods, who can look after it when it's Christmas or New Year or something. And so they had to get an accountant to look after this. And then they had to get another person to make sure that all the work was done, like an officer to organize the work practices. And then also an officer to make sure there was health and safety. And then there was another officer to make sure you were paying all the health and safety officers and security officers and accountants that are paying the right amount. And once they had all these officers looking after the workers, just the guard in this little compound, then they got this report they were going over budget. And so they had another meeting and they decided that someone has to be sacked. So they sacked the caretaker. Who looks after Bodhinyana Monastery? Who looks after Jhana Grove? Who's the boss who looks after this? Do they get paid? Who looks after them to make sure they do their job properly and don't misbehave? Who looks after the people who look after the people who look after the people? For years, I managed to be quite successful avoiding all of this. It seems kind of meaningless. How many people get employed? That's one of the nice things about this place, Jhana Grove. We don't employ anybody. It's all free. Anyone wants to leave a donation can to pay the electricity or something. But other than that, we try and keep it as simple as possible. So when I said that we have all these fears of what we should be doing to make sure everything is done well, all of you people here, we don't have those rules and regulations here. We depend upon you. Have trust in you to look after yourself. This is a different way of looking at the world. So anyway, as a monk, or a bhikkhuni, supposed to have a place to stay and robes and food to eat. One of the things about food is sometimes you may sort of criticize the monks. Why are you so picky and choosy? Why can't you eat whatever's offered? And I'll tell you why. Again, when I was young, monk, you did take whatever you were served, even frogs. Even though I was a vegetarian before, there was no vegetarian food, honestly. And then later on, I just would take anything which person put in my bowl, anything. And sometimes I had a sick tummy in the afternoon. I never knew until much later, and believe it or not, I was allergic to apples. As a kid, I hardly ever ate apples in London. There was one type of apple I could eat. It never made me sick. But then I think when the European Union came along, or we're getting close to it, some apples were banned. It just was difficult. That's what I was told. The other thing which I was always allergic to was honey. And so sometimes people just, what do you mean you don't like honey? No, I like it. I like apples, but they make me sick. If you've ever known someone who has allergies to things, sometimes you have allergies to strange things. I remember reading one article about one lady, a poor lady. She was allergic to vegetables. She said, look, I'm not joking. If I eat vegetables, I'm sick. Do you think she was making it up? On one day, when I was teaching over in Kuala Lumpur, and at a big event, I went onto the stage, and there was about 3,000, 4,000 people listening. And when I was talking, I made the announcement. I said, look, I think I better finish this talk early. No. It's so rare to get you up here. So can we ask another question? And another question. I said, only one more question, please. And it's one of those long-winded questions, part A, part B, part C. And then I tried to finish. I said, look, I've got to go now. And I started walking off the stage. Hadn't got off the stage yet. Projectile vomiting. So I really meant it. I needed to get to the toilet quickly. I never made it. And to this day, that was one of the most wonderful things I ever did. Everybody could see it. Projectile vomiting, just because I'd eaten something which I shouldn't have eaten. And because of that, afterwards, over in Kuala Lumpur and Penang, in Malaysia and Singapore, when I say, look, I can't eat that, they know what happens if I do eat it. You get sick. So because of that, please look after the monks and nuns you feed. Don't ever think they're doing this because of desire. They're doing it because medicine is for health. And that health, if you don't eat the right stuff, it makes you really sick. And that's what happens to me. And so nowadays people are very kind to me. They ask me what you need. It's not desire, it's just cause and effect. So because of that, this is all you really need to be healthy is a place to stay, robes, food. On the last one is medicines. You know what the medicine I used to use regularly is to take it every morning. My own urine. That's what the Buddha recommended. Had my cup, peed into it and drank it. The only reason I gave that up was because in the hot weather here, and I was working really hard, and in the morning it was just so intense. I should have been drinking some more water. That's why I gave it up. It's really good for your health. And of course, your urine is also good as an antiseptic. Whenever I cut myself or something, I would pee on it. And it would actually never get infected. This is monks' stuff. What we do to keep healthy. It's not out of desire or craving. It's out of just simplicity. And so because of that, we try and live a peaceful lifestyle. I'm being 100% truthful to you there. And so, later on, as we are simple, we keep everything else as simple as possible in our lives. And one of those things is, seeing just with health, how easy it is. If we can look at health, we get to know our body, of how to deal with any illnesses which it has. I know one thing, which most people know these days. Because we're living in a simple monastery over in Thailand, we didn't have hardly any funds. I always remember just when I did have, have diarrhea quite often, but dysentery is something much different. I remember getting dysentery. A lot of monks got that. And you go to the toilet, and as soon you just stay there as long as you can. And then when you think you're finished, you walk out, go back to your room to take a rest, and you don't get back to your room. You turn around and go back to the toilet again, because you can't stop. And what I did, I read about this, and it's true. If you do have things like dysentery, one of the best treatments is garlic, just raw garlic. And honestly, I never liked garlic, even as a kid. But because this was going to heal you, I fasted, never had any food, just garlic and water. About 3 days, and it all finished off. No more dysentery. The garlic was a natural antibiotic. We kept it simple. And sometimes, when I try and teach simply, people reject it. Can't we have some more instructions? Can't you go more deep? Deep, say, into dependent origination, or deeper into, the Eightfold Path, in the deeper parts of Buddhism. I don't know why it is that people seem to have the tendency to want deeper every time, when many of the occasions these teachings are so simple. I was really quite taken by all the stories of people getting enlightened in the time of the Buddha. The Buddha would give them a simple teaching. You can actually say it in just in 2 minutes. They'd remember it and they go off into the jungle and they go off and meditate for a couple of years and become fully enlightened. The simplicity of the lifestyle and the simplicity of the teachings. But nowadays, please excuse me, people like complications. And one of those complications is what we call these days the Abhidhamma. How many of you have ever read the Abhidhamma? Or even actually looked at it? Sometimes you look at it or you read it and you think, oh my goodness, have I got to study that? Unfortunately, the answer is no. And I have great arguments with this, but most monks, I don't know about the nuns these days, I hope you support the wise monks, know that the Buddha never taught that. In the time of the Buddha, once the Buddha passed away, they had a convocation, 500 arahats, all met together. I've already mentioned 499 of those arrived on time. The one who was late was Ananda, because he wasn't fully enlightened yet. I did tell you the story, didn't I? So he stayed up all night trying to get enlightened, never succeeded, so went for a sleep. And before his head hit the pillow, he became the 500th arahat. Now that by itself, weird. Why come you've been a disciple of the Buddha and been with him for 25 years? Heard everything the Buddha had to say about meditation and skillful means, but still was not enlightened. You know what I say? Too many teachings. Have you ever felt like that? You have so many teachings, you don't know who's teaching right, who's teaching wrong, whether you remembered it right, remembered it wrong. How many teachings do you need to get fully enlightened? So anyway, Ananda eventually just let go. Forgot those teachings. And then laid down and became fully enlightened. Of course, he remembered the teachings afterwards. And that's why he could repeat them at this council meeting. And all of the texts, reliable texts, always say that Ananda repeated all the sutras which he'd heard. Upali, who was a simple fellow, he was the Buddha's barber when he was a prince. And now he became a monk too. And he became the Vinaya expert on the rules. Please don't ever demean the rules. There's so much Dhamma in there. So he repeated those. That was it. The Dhamma and Vinaya. And that was what they discussed at the first council. There's never ever any mention of Abhidhamma. It was they didn't even call it Dvipitaka baskets, it was just Dhamma Vinaya, that's all. And you see when the Buddha passed away, before he passed away, that's what he said to people. Once I am passed away, your teacher will be Dhamma Vinaya. Not a person, but all those suttas, all those Vinaya which I've taught you. But then when you started to read through those suttas at Dhamma Vinaya, there's one thing which I noticed. Please have a look at it yourself if you doubt me. The only place where the Abhidhamma was mentioned, in the Gudisana Sutta. The Gudisana was the name given to a forest monk at that time. And the forest monk, because he lived in a forest, he could basically take it much more easily than if he's living in town. And the Buddha said, even though you're a forest monk, you should still make sure you do these things, because this is what people expect of you. And he said, one of the paragraphs was, if you're a forest monk, you should always be more expert in Abhidhamma and Abhivinaya. Not just Abhidhamma, Abhivinaya as well. He said, what on earth is a forest monk doing, being an expert in Abhidhamma and Abhivinaya? Number one, you don't even know what Abhivinaya is, because you've never been mentioned that term probably. They all go together, those two, Abhidhamma and Abhivinaya. Abhidhamma, you think that somebody who is a professor at university is the expert on Abhidhamma. And we say, no. The one who lives in a forest monastery. Really simple. And then I repeat what Ajahn Brahm once told me. He said, Abhidhamma, what's Abhidhamma? And I'm not going to repeat what Ajahn Brahm said, because it hurts. He banged his chest. I'm doing it very slightly, not as hard as he did. He said, Abhidhamma is in here, not in a book. Abhidhamma is when you're practicing and you see all these teachings with much greater depth and clarity. And that's what you'd expect of a forest monk. Meditating more, spending more time in seclusion, and having greater mindfulness. And it's when you see greater mindfulness, all these things which you thought you knew, which you thought you'd seen and understood, you see it so much deeper. And you can understand why the Buddha taught it that way. As I often mention to people, you all know the Four Noble Truths, don't you? No, you don't. If you did, you could claim to be enlightened. That's actually how the Buddha taught. Before I fully understood them. He used this word, pari. Pari means complete. Pariññātabang. To be understood fully, completely. Not just superficially, but really understood. And when they're really understood, then you can say you're enlightened. It's the same as the two Nibbanas. Nibbana and Parinibbana. What's the difference between those two words? One is like cessation, Nibbana, and Parinibbana means full cessation, totally gone, completely, nothing left. And then when you understand the way that these words are used, goodness, it makes it so clear that once you get Parinibbana, there's nothing left. Zero. Not even nothing is left. Okay, just the way that people say, oh, nothing is left. Yeah, nothing. We worship nothing. We often have great fun with that. When one of my friends was trying to convert me to being a Christian, He came up and said, nothing is higher than God. I said, yes, I agree with you. That's not what I meant. You sneaky and tricky monk. We have great fun with that word, nothing. This was also Lewis Carroll and Alice. I think this was Alice through the looking glass, was it? But anyway, it was when they used the simile of like being a chess piece, and eventually Alice got to the last row where she became a queen. And there she met the Red Queen. And the Red Queen said to her, oh, congratulations, welcome. By the way, on the path, did you see anybody on the path here? Because I'm waiting for my messenger. He's supposed to be arriving soon. And Alice said, I saw nobody on the path. Oh, really? Where's my messenger gone? And then the messenger arrived and he said, you're really slow, messenger. I've been waiting such a long time for you. And he said, Madam, no one passed me on the path. Yes, this lady saw nobody too, who walks much faster than you. And said, nobody walks faster than me. He said, yeah, exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's this great sort of fun and games. What does nobody mean? Is nobody a person? Or nobody means there is no person? And that's when I get into some really nice arguments with monks who think, there's still somebody there, the essential you. When everything else vanishes, what's left? Nobody, yes. We believe in nobody too. Is anybody more intelligent than you? Prem, nobody is more intelligent than you. Is that a praise? Or is that actually something you can sue me for? The idea in Buddhism is anatta. It's not a being with the name of nothing. It means the absence of things. Nothing there. No one. Gone. Finished. And that means a lot of times you can teach and people don't understand what you teach. Say, the Arahat. The Arahat is... this one kid once, a long time ago, he said, oh yeah, we believe in Nibbana too. That's a planet. Once you become enlightened, you get reborn on this planet, just beyond the solar system called Nibbana. You go to Nibbana. I said, actually, no. I also remember this little kid once. It's nice talking to kids because they see things differently. And this kid sort of came up to Ajahn Brahm and said, how much? What do you mean, how much? How much? What do you mean, how many dollars? No. How many inches? What do you mean, how many inches? Look, how many inches can you levitate? Come on, I want to see. Because those are the days when kids love psychic powers and strange things. So sometimes you say, okay, have a look. Could you see? You're doing nothing, you're just staying still there. No, I wasn't. You've got to learn how to look properly, first of all. That was about 6 inches this time. You're messing around with the kids and their perceptions. I also remember Muhammad Ali. Remember the boxer, world champion? And once he said, can you still, I think it was one of his ex-competitors, Frazier or something. Anyway, Joe Frazier asked him, do you still practice? Oh yeah. Show me. Did you see that? No, I didn't. I said, I'm still very fast, much faster than you expect. Honestly, when I was 11 years old, Muhammad Ali was called Cassius Clay, and he was having a boxing match in London with this English boxer. And I heard about that. I was a kid and doing nothing, getting bored. With my friend, we heard this rumour that he was practicing over in this part of London called the White City. And so we went there just hanging around, nothing to do. And then I saw these African Americans coming, and then I asked one of them, "Any of you Cassius Clay?" And he said, "He is." He was such a lovely man. "Can you sign my autograph book?" He signed it. He said, "Do you want to come and watch me train?" So he allowed us to come into this little room where they had a ring, and we watched Cassius Clay train for about half an hour. It was wonderful days when people trusted one another. And I thought he was a great guy. Anyway, I did get his autograph, but later on it was stolen. I'm happy it was stolen because I didn't have to worry about it anymore. So, oh my goodness. This clock is not usually so fast. I think it's got the disease the other clock got. It's not going to work soon. But all the things which I've taught you right now, what were they? Do you remember them? Sometimes, if it's like a class at a school, where you give you stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, people like that because they got used to that. But the real Dharma, how Ajahn Chah taught me, and even how the Buddha taught, as he taught, he would teach just kind of spontaneously. And afterwards, I'm pretty sure this is how it happened. When those monks came together to bring all those teachings together, that is when, in order to remember them, they weren't written down, they weren't recorded on a tape, they weren't sort of downloaded on some tab, they were just remembered. And then they would start to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Often I thought that these monks must have been great mathematicians to be able to record and actually say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in real life, no one ever talks like that. In real life, they give Dhamma talks like I've just given. Many little things, but all connected together. And that's what you remember the best. Sometimes people needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to remember. But most times in life, it is just the talk, connected together, and that is what stays with you. That's why there are so many monks and nuns in these monasteries here in Perth. How many other monasteries do you know, Buddhist monasteries, where there are so many monks and nuns? Something must be happening here. And why do you enjoy coming here? I say we don't need to charge for anything. But if we did charge, suppose it was like $100 a talk, would you come? Okay, pay up. No, I can't say that. No, of course we don't. To me, that is just really evil, to charge for Dhamma. Dhamma is way beyond that. It's beautiful, it's incredible. You don't want to charge for it. And you can't. That's one of the reasons why that monks and money don't mix. Try to keep as far away from it as we possibly can. Because this is a gift. It's like the Dhamma was given to Ajahn, to the Buddha's disciples by the Buddha. Actually, I did tell you that it was the Buddha Kassapa gave the Dhamma to the Buddha. That was his gift. And The Buddha's disciples eventually gave the Dhamma to this person, that person, that person, to the monks and the nuns, indiscriminate, whoever you are. And then eventually that someone gave it to me, that was the Ajahn Brahm. And he got so much respect, for the whole process. There's no way in the world I could ever charge anyone for this. You give it. And how do we survive? If we need anything, people help. That's it. I'm really surprised just how much generosity people have. And when you feel that someone has helped you, please don't say, Ajahn Brahm, you really, really helped me. Can I give you a gift? The answer is no. You give it to someone else. A long time ago, I understood this. It's called paying it forward. Which means someone helps you, now you're obliged to help somebody else. When they want to say thank you to you, you say no. Now you've got to help somebody else. And you've got to help somebody else. You've got to serve somebody else. And that way the help, the service goes on and on and on and on. If I help you and you give me something back, that's the end of it. When you realize each one of you, if you've got anything from this retreat, you're obliged now to pay it off to somebody else, not to me. Understand? Great. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And is there any volunteers here? Anybody who say, well, you can't pay it off to Ajahn Brahm, but I'm available. You can always pay it off to me. Who's really poor? Nuns? Santi? Okay, so have a wonderful morning. And this morning's interviews are mostly with the Koreans. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So somebody there can do some translation. Is that going to be you? Excellent, okay, see what happens. In the meantime, have a beautiful meditation if you wish. If you get some can I be honest again with you? If you get some really nice deep meditations, please let me know. I always think that's my payback. It makes me really happy.